In mid-1967, a popular book was published under the title The Beautiful People, a candid examination of a cultural phenomenon, the marriage of fashion and society in the 60s. Beautiful people was, at the time, a pejorative designated to describe the social elite, the rich, the famous, and the rich and famous. And by that point, the Beatles were not only rich, but arguably the most famous people on the planet. On the flip side of this, beautiful people was also a term commandeered by the non-materialistic hippie movement to describe themselves. In this regard, the Beatles stood as pillars of that society as well. These two cultures, the monetarily rich socialites and the young, immaterialistic free minds of the counterculture movement, clashed together in the lyrics to the B-side of All You Need Is Love, a unique groove known as Baby You're a Rich Man, released during the Summer of Love on July 7, 1967. The verses came from the germination of a song John Lennon was working on, while the chorus was taken from an idea Paul McCartney was playing around with. Like the legendary track A Day in the Life, newly released at the time, and like the double-ended Beautiful People phrase itself, Baby You're a Rich Man took both unfinished songs and stuck them together as one complete arrangement, and the lyrics seemed to address both claimants to the term. There was a lot of talk in the newspapers then about the beautiful people, Paul explained in his book Many Years From Now. That was what they called them. The question then was, how does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? John wrote his part in April of '67, after coming home from a psychedelic evening till dawn festival known as the 14-hour Technicolor Dream, which featured over 60 bands and performance artists on 3 stages in the Great Hall of Alexandra Palace. Some names on the bill were Pink Floyd, Denny Lane, and Yoko Ono, pre-John and Yoko. Commentators on the era mark that night as the official coming-out party of the hippie counterculture in the UK, and John was there to see and feel the wave take shape, surrounded by throngs of young people ingesting LSD together and breaking through to the far reaches of the collective consciousness, something John had been doing on a near daily basis at the time. How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? He asks in the first words sung in the track. He then seems to play on the two meanings of the beautiful people term, asking and answering questions that could apply to both sets, the rich and the cosmic. Now that you know who you are, what do you want to be? And have you traveled very far? As far as the eye can see. On the one hand, the rich have the means to decide to be anything they'd like to be, because wealth buys position. Moreover, with prosperity comes the ability to travel. The rich can certainly travel anywhere in the world at will, as far as the eye can see, as the saying goes. While on the other hand, the psychonaut counterculture were traveling through the doors of perception into the depths of psychedelic consciousness, as far as the third eye can see, to find that who they really are individual drops in the ocean of the universal mind. Both sets of beautiful people can be what they want and travel without limit. But after these lines, John drops the rich in his dialogue, and the rest of his verses focus just on the latter beautiful people, those whose spiritual journeys interest him the most, and he expands on these ideas with more questions and answers in the next verse, beginning with, "How often have you been there?" Often enough to know. Meaning, when you've experienced the collective or divine consciousness, all doubt is removed of its existence and the meaning of your own, and you just know. This line is speaking directly about the psychedelic experience. What did you see when you were there? John then asks. And in a nod to All You Need Is Love, the A-side of the record, which says, there's nothing you can see that isn't shown, the answer is given, nothing that doesn't show, which indicates that after visiting the Absolute, you've seen it all, or rather, the all. In other words, what did you see when you were there? Everything that can be seen. The third verse, more questions and answers, still focuses solely on the spiritual counterculture, those whose frequencies had tuned into the natural vibration of the universe, the ancient idea of Om, spoken of in Across the Universe. In this last verse, John sings, "Tuned to a natural E, happy to be that way. Now that you've found another key, what are you going to play?" In Lennon fashion, we encounter unique wordplay of the cleverest variety once again. A guitar is tuned literally to what is called a natural E, meaning the musical key of E. But here, John is talking about the beautiful people being tuned in with nature, while further playing on the two words natural and E, which together make the word naturally. Tuned to a natural E is a line I remember us writing, Paul once recalled, a slight pun on the word naturally. Well, in the second bar of the verse, John asks a question that is left open for the listener to answer, and it is more wordplay, asking, now that you've found another key, continuing with the musical metaphor, but meaning, now that you've unlocked what Huxley called the doors of perception, or now that you've tuned yourself to the natural vibration of the universe, what are you going to do, as those who are properly tuned in can manifest their own destiny, or so the Eastern belief posits? The answer, of course, is left up to you, the listener. But before you choose, you are reminded in the song's chorus that apart from your financial situation, whatever it be, you are spiritually rich if you can recognize it. Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man too. The point was, John once stated in an interview, stop moaning. You're a rich man, and we're all rich men. George concurred, explaining to the hippies of Haight-Ashbury during an acid trip in the summer of love that they were all rich internally, and it had nothing to do with materialistic considerations. He said this in an explanation of Baby You're a Rich Man, the Beatles' latest release at that moment in time, after playing it on an acoustic guitar among the crowds in a San Francisco park. The idea, George would then say about the song in 1987, was to show that we, being rich and famous and having all these experiences, had realized that there was a greater thing to be got out of life. And what's the point of having that all on your own? You want all your friends and everyone else to do it too. But of course, due to what John's part of the song is about, this interpretation of the chorus is somewhat forced. That is to say, it was bent from its original meaning in light of what it became attached to. Originally, as we know, Paul had written it without the influence of John's cosmically based verses, and so it stands to reason it began with an entirely different inspiration altogether. After repeating, "Baby, you're a rich man" 3 times, Paul wrote, "You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do." This, as it turns out, was written about the Beatles' manager, Brian Epstein, who ran the zoo, which is what they referred to the pandemonious phenomenon of Beatlemania as. As a zookeeper, Brian collected the money from the masses who came to see the Beatles, locked in their cages of uncharted fame. It's well documented in almost all Beatles biographies that, in addition to what was on any contracts, in order to avoid the tax man with at least some of his income, Brian would demand separate, under-the-table payments from concert promoters in order for him to bring them his Beatles. He would accept these rather large payments in brown paper bags. Hence, you keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do. In the end, that was the magic of the Lennon-McCartney pairing. They were a yin and yang in their personalities, their voices, their attitudes, and their writing styles. And that's why they complement each other so well. Because the light needs the dark to exist. The positive needs the negative. The day needs the night. The black needs the white. Like the medley at the end of Abbey Road, or Paul's "It's Getting Better All the Time," being followed up by John's "It Can't Get No Worse," Baby You're a Rich Man is 2 unconnected, near opposite pieces of music and lyrics, welded together to make what is today a legendary Beatles track that fires on every cylinder, one which demonstrates the magic of the Beatles from beginning to end. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments section below. But first, as a bonus, here are 5 additional Baby You're a Rich Man facts. 1. There's barely any guitars in the track. While Paul does play his bass, technically a form of guitar, there's only a ghost track of a 6-string being played. John plays the piano, and George plays the tambourine. 2. Helping with the vocals are Mick Jagger and Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones. 3. The strange-sounding instrument playing lead in the intro of Baby You're a Rich Man is an early synthesizer called a clavioline. John put it on the oboe setting and dubbed his performance on it over the rhythm track at Olympic Studios. 4. Baby You're a Rich Man was intentionally recorded to appear on the Yellow Submarine film's soundtrack in 1968, but wasn't included on it, though it did feature in the movie. 5. Paul remembered the recording of Baby You're a Rich Man as a very exciting session, saying it was finished within 6 hours and mixed by Keith Grant, who was buzzing so much from the track that he stood up behind the console while he worked away, mixing it in full right then and there. Thanks again for watching. If you haven't subscribed, now's your opportunity. There are plenty more Beatles lyrical analysis videos that are on the way that you won't want to miss. Until next time.